This video was brought to you by Brilliant, and the first 200 people to use the link below will get 20% off an annual premium subscription. War is expensive. It costs money, resources, and lives. And on its own, Ukraine wouldn't be able to afford it. After all, Ukraine has a GDP per capita of just $4,000, well below that of its Eastern European neighbours. Fortunately for the Ukrainians though, since the 2014 annexation of Crimea, 3 successive US administrations have funneled billions of dollars and hundreds of tons of military hardware to the Ukrainian government. With all sorts of large numbers being thrown around, we thought it would be a good idea to do a video explaining exactly what arms the US has been sending to Ukraine, and how these arms stack up against Russia. So, first things first, we need to figure out what the US has provided Ukraine over the years. For this video, we're going to be focusing on military aid, and ignoring broader assistance like humanitarian or policing aid. We'll also be counting what's known as authorized drop-downs. These are US military supplies directly transferred by the president to other nations in times of emergencies. So, when did Ukraine first start getting this kind of assistance? Well, back under the Obama administration, Ukraine wasn't allowed access to lethal weapons. Aid was still provided though, to the tune of $600 million from 2014 to 2016. Everything from body armor, night vision goggles, transportation vehicles, and training was sent over, but no lethal aid. Obama continued to refrain from sending lethal aid even after the tragic shootdown of Malaysia Airlines Flight 17 by Russian-backed forces over Ukraine in 2014. He was worried that Ukrainians using US weapons might inflict a similar tragedy, which wouldn't be a good look for the US. It would take until December 2017 for the US to provide its first batch of lethal aid under President Trump. And this came in the form of the now famed Javelin anti-tank launcher system. For those of you who don't know, Javelins are American-made portable anti-tank missiles that use infrared homing. Each one costs about $175,000, and around $47 million worth of Javelins were provided at the time, with successive smaller batches being delivered until 2019. While that might sound like a lot, there were conditions placed on the transfer that rendered the Javelins less useful than they might have otherwise been. For instance, the Trump administration stipulated that these weapons were only to be used for training purposes, in order to avoid provoking a Russian response. This would change in the coming years though, as security assistance continued to grow in size and lethality. In 2019, the same year that Trump was impeached over the issue of Ukrainian defense aid, US military aid jumped to a new high of over $400 million, for a total of $1.5 billion since 2014. Counter-artillery radars, medicine, electronic warfare detectors, secure comm systems, and Humvees were sent to Ukraine, along with new lethal aid, such as sniper rifles, armed patrol boats, and RPGs. From 2019 until the end of his term, Trump continued to supply Ukraine with military aid, including more Javelin missiles. However, the steepest increases came via the Biden administration. Remember how between 2014 and 2019, Ukrainian aid jumped by $1.5 billion? Well, by early 2022, in just over 2 years, that number had ballooned to $3 billion, as the Russians positioned troops and equipment in preparation for their full-scale invasion. And now that Russia invaded nearly a month ago, there's still no signs that fighting and destruction will come to an end anytime soon, with even more equipment now being shipped to Ukraine. And Congress has just given President Biden the power to provide up to $3 billion in military drawdowns to Ukraine. Just last week, Biden announced the latest $800 million aid package aimed at sustaining the Ukrainians' ability to hold the front line against Russian forces, with the US providing 800 Stinger anti-aircraft systems, 2,000 Javelin systems, 100 Switchblade drones, 100 grenade launchers, 7,000 small arms, 6,000 AT-4 anti-armor systems, 200 million rounds of small arms ammunition, including grenade and mortar rounds, 25,000 sets of body armor, and 25,000 helmets. One thing that stands out from the latest aid package, though, is the prevalence of Javelin missiles and other anti-tank weapons. These include the new Switchblade drones, which can be flown directly into armoured vehicles. These Switchblade drones were first used in Afghanistan in 2010, and this is the first time that the US has transferred any to a foreign nation. This focus on anti-tank weapons makes sense though. As of January 2022, Russia claims to have around 12,400 tanks in their arsenal, as well as many more combat vehicles, double that of the United States. But these anti-tank weapons have proved remarkably effective thus far. Of the estimated 1,200 tanks that Russia has committed to the invasion, Ukraine claims to have destroyed 450, which would be nearly 40% of the total. Even if this number ends up being an overestimate, at least 244 have been documented to have been destroyed, which comes to about 20% of Russia's total. Ukraine also claims to have destroyed 1,448 armoured vehicles, which would be nearly 50% of the 2,900 committed by Russia to the invasion. Again, even if this figure is an overestimate, at least 500 cases have been documented, which would come to 20% of Russia's arsenal. These are big numbers, and probably go some way to explain why Russia has started relying more heavily on artillery rather than their original strategy. So that's what the US has offered Ukraine during this war. Some about the broader relationship between the two countries going back over the last decade, and some of the numbers at play in this broader conflict. If passing these kinds of big numbers and stats just isn't your kind of thing, then you should check out Brilliant. Brilliant is an online STEM learning platform that turns complex subjects into fun and interactive experiences. I actually did a computer science degree, and I've loved exploring Brilliant to refresh my skills, as well as learning new ones to help with my current job, like their superb statistics courses. But you don't need any kind of background in STEM. If you just want to spend a bit of time building your skills, then you can do it right away, with no long boring lectures like the ones I had to sit through. Sorry to my former university. Instead, you can learn through interactive games and puzzles, the kind of thing you actually want to do. There's something at all levels too, with more advanced courses on things like neural networks and even quantum computing. Just pick a course that you're interested in and get started. They're all designed by award-winning instructors and built upon the principle of active learning, so you're gaining STEM knowledge by actually doing it. Brilliant helps you learn new things and sharpen your skills. So if you want to improve with STEM, then you should sign up to Brilliant at brilliant.org/TLDR US. And the first 200 people to do so will get 20% off an annual premium subscription. Thanks so much for supporting the channel. Then you should sign up to Brilliant at brilliant.org/TLDR Global.